You wake in the middle of the night to a thundering sound inside your head. At first you think it's just a dream, but then you realize you can't move your right arm. Your vision blurs. You try to speak, but only half of your mouth obeys. Within seconds, the reality hits: you are in the middle of a stroke. For millions of seniors, this scenario is not a faraway possibility, it's a daily threat. What makes it even more terrifying is that many of these strokes are silent. They occur without dramatic symptoms, slowly robbing the brain of oxygen until memory loss, imbalance, or sudden collapse strikes without warning. Now here's the shocking part. The trigger is not always the usual suspects: smoking fried food or heavy alcohol. No. In fact, some of the biggest dangers hide in foods seniors reach for believing they are healthy. Fruits. Yes, the very symbol of nature's medicine can, under the wrong conditions, set the stage for a silent stroke overnight. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. And if you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. As a neurologist, I have seen this tragedy unfold countless times. The aging brain is especially vulnerable. Did you know that after the age of 60, the tiny arteries feeding your brain lose flexibility? Studies confirm that vascular stiffening makes these blood vessels more likely to rupture or clog. That means foods which were once harmless can suddenly become dangerous triggers, and fruits, depending on their compounds, sugar load, and timing, are no exception. Let me tell you about Mr. Raymond, a 66-year-old retired carpenter. He was a lively man, loved gardening, and prided himself on staying all natural. Every evening before bed, he enjoyed a tall glass of fresh squeezed grapefruit juice. He believed it was keeping him young. But one morning, his wife found him struggling to stand, slurring his speech with one side of his face drooping. At the hospital, scans revealed multiple small strokes that had accumulated quietly like raindrops eroding a rock. The culprit. The interaction between grapefruit compounds and his blood pressure medication, which spiked his risk of cerebral bleeding overnight. What he thought was a healthy ritual had silently betrayed him. This is why I say never assume all fruits are universally safe for seniors. The aging brain and blood vessels play by different rules. A simple choice, an evening fruit, a natural juice, or an exotic superfruit, can tip the balance toward disaster if not matched to your body's needs. Think about this. If a single piece of fruit combined with aging arteries and the wrong timing could trigger a stroke, what other healthy foods might be quietly endangering you right now? And if this shocked you, wait until you discover how a common citrus fruit, the one many seniors enjoy daily, can raise nighttime blood pressure and silently push the brain toward stroke. That's coming up next. Have you ever noticed how your blood pressure seems to creep up at night even when you've been calm all day? For many seniors, this nighttime rise in blood pressure is not only frustrating, it's dangerous. Medical research shows that after age 60, the body's natural circadian rhythm, which should lower blood pressure at night, becomes disrupted. Instead of relaxing, blood vessels may tighten, forcing the heart to pump harder while the brain rests. Doctors call this nocturnal hypertension, a silent risk factor for strokes and brain bleeds that often goes undiagnosed because blood pressure is rarely measured while you sleep. Now here's the hidden twist. Certain citrus fruits, especially oranges and grapefruits, can make this nighttime surge worse. Seniors often enjoy a piece of fruit or a glass of juice before bed, thinking it's a light, healthy snack. But citrus fruits contain natural compounds called flavonoids, which can interact with the body's blood pressure regulation in surprising ways. In some people, they raise nitric oxide too, suddenly widening vessels briefly, only for a rebound effect that spikes blood pressure later. Add to this the fruit's natural sugar load, causing insulin release and stress hormone activity, and you have a recipe for hidden nighttime pressure surges. Let me share the story of Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a 72-year-old retired teacher. Evelyn had always been careful with her diet. She avoided salt, exercised regularly, and even kept her weight stable. But she had a nightly ritual: 2 large oranges before bedtime, a habit she picked up decades ago. She loved the refreshing taste and believed vitamin C was her shield against illness. One evening she went to bed as usual, but at 3 a.m. she awoke with a pounding headache, dizziness, and nausea. At the emergency room, doctors found her blood pressure had spiked to 210/110, far above safe limits. A brain scan showed early signs of a small vessel leak, a warning that a massive stroke could be just around the corner. The doctors eventually traced the issue to her citrus habit, compounded by her age-related changes in blood vessel elasticity and kidney function. What she thought was healthy had nearly cost her life. This is the cruel paradox of aging. As we get older, even good foods can become harmful because the body no longer processes them the same way. Kidneys lose efficiency, arteries stiffen, and the heart grows more sensitive to sudden changes in pressure. What's safe at 40 can be risky at 70, and when it comes to citrus, the timing of consumption may be just as critical as the fruit itself. Eating citrus earlier in the day allows your body to handle the sugar and compounds while active. Eating it late at night when your blood vessels should be resting puts strain exactly when your system is least prepared. Imagine lying peacefully in bed while inside your arteries a hidden battle rages: blood pressure, climbing vessels, straining brain tissue, thirsting for oxygen, and all of this from a simple orange. Doesn't that make you wonder what other fruits might carry silent risks? Because if citrus can raise blood pressure and threaten the brain, wait until you hear about the next danger: the blood-thinning compounds in certain fruits that can quietly turn a small bruise into a deadly brain bleed. When people think of blood thinners, they usually imagine prescription drugs like warfarin or aspirin, but what many seniors don't realize is that nature has its own powerful blood-thinning agents hidden inside everyday fruits. On the surface, this might sound like a good thing. After all, thinner blood lowers the risk of clots. But for seniors, especially those already on medication, it can quietly tip the balance from safety into danger. One of the biggest changes that occurs after 60 is the fragility of tiny brain vessels. Aging arteries often develop microscopic weaknesses, making them more prone to rupture. At the same time, the liver, which processes both natural compounds and medications, works more slowly. That means substances that thin the blood, whether from medicine or food, linger longer, building up stronger effects than expected. It's like turning a faucet just a little too far. What should be a steady trickle suddenly becomes an uncontrollable flow. Now here's the surprising truth. Fruits such as cherries, blueberries, cranberries, and even strawberries contain compounds called salicylates. These are naturally occurring chemicals that mimic the effect of aspirin, one of the most common blood-thinning drugs. In moderation, salicylates can support circulation. But in seniors, particularly those already prescribed aspirin, Plavix, or other anticoagulants, they can magnify the risk of uncontrolled bleeding. Even a small leak in the brain can turn into a devastating stroke when the blood refuses to clot. Consider the story of Mr. Leonard Hughes, a 74-year-old grandfather who loved his morning fruit bowl. Every day he piled strawberries and blueberries on top of his oatmeal, convinced he was nourishing his brain. He also took a daily baby aspirin on his doctor's advice, something many seniors do for heart protection. For months, everything seemed fine. Then one afternoon, Leonard suddenly collapsed in his garden. His speech was slurred, his right side limp. At the hospital, scans showed a hemorrhagic stroke, a bleed inside the brain. Doctors were puzzled at first until his wife mentioned his generous fruit servings combined with his aspirin regimen. The healthy berries had contributed to dangerously thinning his blood, pushing him past the safety threshold. Leonard survived, but his mobility never fully returned. His family learned the hard way that even wholesome foods can become harmful when mixed with aging physiology and medications. This is not to say seniors must avoid all berries or cherries. These fruits are rich in antioxidants and can support health when used wisely. The real danger is unawareness. When natural salicylates combine with prescribed blood thinners, the effect isn't simply added, it's multiplied. Seniors need to remember that their bodies process things differently, and the same dose that nourishes a younger person may endanger an older one. Ask yourself this: if a handful of cherries can quietly tip the balance toward a brain bleed, what might happen when the sugar from fruit juices is added to the equation, slamming into already fragile blood vessels? And that's exactly where we're headed next, because the sweetness of fruit juice, often seen as harmless, may in fact be fueling a hidden sugar overload that puts your brain at risk. For decades, fruit juice has been marketed as the ultimate health drink, pure, natural, packed with vitamins. Many seniors trust it as a safe alternative to soda, believing they're making the healthy choice. But here's the truth that most never hear: fruit juice is sugar in disguise. As we age, the body loses some of its ability to regulate blood sugar. The pancreas doesn't release insulin as efficiently, and the muscles absorb glucose more slowly. That means spikes in blood sugar last longer, causing more damage to delicate tissues, especially the fine vessels in the brain. This is why seniors with diabetes are at much higher risk of strokes and memory decline. But even without diabetes, those long-lasting sugar surges can silently erode brain health. Now let's take a look at fruit juice. A single glass of orange juice can contain as much sugar as a can of cola, sometimes 20 to 25 grams in one serving. The key difference is that juice doesn't contain the fiber of whole fruit, which normally slows sugar absorption. Instead, the glucose and fructose rush into the bloodstream all at once, forcing the pancreas and blood vessels into crisis mode. The body releases insulin and stress hormones like adrenaline to try and contain the surge. The result, roller coaster blood pressure, inflamed arteries, and in some cases, the perfect storm for a stroke. I'll never forget Mrs. Julia Morrison, a 69-year-old retired librarian. Julia had always been proud of her disciplined lifestyle. She avoided candy and desserts, rarely touched fast food, and drank water faithfully throughout the day. But she had one daily indulgence, a tall glass of fresh, natural apple juice with breakfast and another before bed. She believed it was boosting her immune system. Over time, Julia began noticing sudden dizziness and pounding headaches late at night. One morning, she fainted while preparing coffee. At the hospital, tests revealed a dangerous combination of blood sugar spikes and vessel inflammation, which had triggered a mini-stroke. Julia was stunned. She thought she had been doing everything right. It turned out that her innocent glasses of juice were flooding her bloodstream, damaging her vessels silently until her brain could no longer withstand the pressure. This is the betrayal of fruit juice. It feels safe, even virtuous, but it loads the bloodstream with the very substance that accelerates aging in the brain sugar. And because seniors' vascular systems are more fragile, the consequences are magnified. Even those who feel fine may already be accumulating silent strokes, tiny areas of brain damage that add up over time, leading to memory problems, difficulty walking, and eventually loss of independence. So the next time you see a bottle of juice labeled 100% natural, ask yourself, natural for whom? For a child running around on a playground maybe, but for an older adult with stiffening arteries and slower metabolism, it can be a ticking time bomb. And if fruit juice can do this much damage, what about fruits that overload the body with minerals instead of sugar? Up next, we'll uncover how potassium-packed fruits like bananas and tropical varieties can overwhelm aging kidneys and quietly sabotage brain circulation. Most seniors know that potassium is important for health. Doctors often encourage it to help balance blood pressure and support heart function. Bananas, oranges, melons, these are praised as potassium-rich choices. But what many seniors don't realize is that too much potassium can be just as dangerous as too little, especially after the age of 60. Here's why: as we get older, the kidneys, the body's natural filters, lose efficiency. By age 70, many people have lost up to 40% of kidney function without even realizing it. This decline means the body has a harder time excreting extra potassium from food. Instead of keeping levels balanced, potassium builds up in the bloodstream, a condition called hyperkalemia. In younger adults, the body compensates quickly. In seniors, however, this imbalance can trigger sudden muscle weakness, irregular heartbeats, and even brain circulation problems. Now let's connect this to fruit. A single banana contains around 400 milligrams of potassium. A serving of papaya or mango can hold even more. Eating several potassium-rich fruits in one sitting may seem harmless, but for someone with slowed kidney function, it can be overwhelming. Excess potassium disrupts the delicate electrical activity that keeps both the heart and the brain stable. In severe cases, it can cause the brain's circulation to falter, reducing oxygen delivery and increasing the risk of silent strokes. Take the case of Mr. Samuel Grant, a 71-year-old former mechanic. Samuel prided himself on avoiding salty foods and processed snacks. Instead, he snacked on bananas, sometimes 2 or 3 a day, believing he was fueling his muscles. He also loved tropical fruit smoothies made with papaya and mango, which he drank almost daily. Over time, Samuel began experiencing sudden bouts of confusion and lightheadedness. One afternoon, while working on a small project in his garage, he collapsed. At the hospital, doctors discovered dangerously high potassium levels in his blood, along with irregular heart rhythms and evidence of a recent mini-stroke. Samuel was stunned. He had never considered that his fruit-heavy diet could actually be endangering his brain. This is the paradox of aging nutrition. What strengthens the young can sometimes weaken the old. Foods once considered protective may turn against you when your body's filtering systems slow down. And the danger is compounded because many seniors are also prescribed medications such as ACE inhibitors or potassium-sparing diuretics that already raise potassium levels. Add bananas, melons, or papayas on top of that, and the result can be toxic. Think of it this way: your body is like a finely tuned electrical circuit. Potassium is the current. Too little and the circuit shuts down. Too much and it burns out the wiring. Seniors must walk this tightrope carefully, and unfortunately most never suspect that their fruit bowl could be pushing them toward imbalance. So here's the question: if potassium-rich fruits can quietly overload your system and damage brain circulation, what happens when certain citrus peels carry chemicals that directly interfere with blood clotting, turning a small vessel leak into a life-threatening brain bleed? Most people are familiar with the refreshing tang of citrus grapefruit oranges, lemons. Seniors often zest the peel into tea marmalade or even homemade remedies, believing they're squeezing every ounce of goodness from the fruit. But hidden in those bright rinds are compounds with a darker side, furanocoumarins. First, let's look at the aging body. After 60, blood vessels in the brain naturally become more fragile. The protective layer of collagen thins, and the clotting system, which once acted like an emergency patch, weakens with age. This is why even minor injuries or small leaks can escalate quickly in seniors. Combine fragile vessels with impaired clotting, and the brain becomes far more vulnerable to bleeding events. Now here's the surprising science. Furanocoumarins found in citrus peels, especially grapefruit and certain varieties of orange, are natural plant chemicals that interact strongly with the liver's detox system. They can inhibit enzymes that normally break down medications, causing drugs to stay in the bloodstream longer and act more powerfully than intended. For seniors on blood thinners, this means the medicine becomes even stronger, pushing clotting time further out of balance. The end result: a much higher chance of hemorrhage, particularly in the delicate vessels of the brain. Let me share a real-world story. Mrs. Helen Brooks, a 68-year-old widow, loved to cook. She believed zesting orange peel into her evening tea was a natural way to boost her vitamin intake. At the same time, she was on warfarin for atrial fibrillation, a condition that already raised her risk of clotting. For months, everything seemed fine. But one evening, Helen felt a sudden crushing headache unlike anything she'd known. Within minutes, she became disoriented and collapsed. At the hospital, doctors discovered a massive intracerebral hemorrhage, a brain bleed. The cause wasn't just her medication. Tests revealed elevated drug levels in her system, amplified by her daily citrus peel consumption. What she thought was harmless had quietly intensified her medicine's effects until her brain's fragile vessels could no longer withstand the pressure. This kind of tragedy underscores how natural doesn't always mean safe, especially for seniors whose bodies no longer metabolize foods and drugs the same way. The interaction between citrus peel chemicals and blood-thinning medication isn't a rare fluke. It's a well-documented risk. Yet many seniors are unaware, continuing to drink citrus-infused teas, marmalades, and health tonics without realizing they may be priming their bodies for disaster. Think of your blood vessels as thin glass pipes. In youth, they could withstand pressure and minor nicks. But in older age, the glass grows brittle. Now imagine pouring a chemical into the system that makes water flow more forcefully without reducing the pressure. Eventually, the pipe cracks, and once the brain begins to bleed, damage can be irreversible. So ask yourself if zesting a little peel can magnify medications and trigger bleeding. What might happen when fruit is eaten late at night, just when blood pressure naturally peaks and vessels are at their weakest? That's the next hidden danger we'll explore. Nighttime is supposed to be when your body rests, repairs, and restores. But for many seniors, the night is actually when the greatest health risks strike. Doctors know that the majority of strokes and heart attacks in older adults occur during the early morning hours, when blood pressure surges sharply after midnight. The aging body struggles to regulate these shifts because blood vessels lose elasticity and hormone rhythms flatten. Instead of calming down at night, the circulatory system may actually become unstable. Now here's where fruit enters the story. Eating fruit late in the evening, particularly sugary or water-heavy varieties like grapes, watermelon, or oranges, can quietly worsen this nighttime instability. Why? First, the natural sugars spike insulin levels just before sleep, disturbing the balance of blood pressure-regulating hormones. Second, the fluid content forces the kidneys into overdrive at night, creating extra strain and sudden fluctuations in circulation. In seniors with fragile arteries, this pressure can accumulate as silent brain swelling, tiny undetected injuries that gradually steal memory, balance, and independence. Let me introduce you to Mr. Thomas Rivera, a 70-year-old retired school bus driver. Thomas had battled high blood pressure for years, but he managed it carefully with medication. He also had a nightly habit, a large bowl of grapes while watching television before bed. He believed it was harmless. After all, grapes are full of antioxidants, right? But over time, Thomas began to notice morning headaches and mild confusion. His family thought it was just normal aging. One night he woke suddenly at 4 a.m. with severe dizziness and couldn't walk straight. At the hospital, scans revealed evidence of multiple microinfarcts, tiny strokes that had built up silently over months. His doctors explained that his late-night fruit habit had been spiking his blood pressure and overloading his system exactly when it was most vulnerable. This is the cruel reality of aging. The same foods that once nourished can at the wrong time become silent saboteurs. The brain swells not like a balloon popping, but like a sponge soaking up drops of water little by little until function is impaired. And seniors often don't notice until it's too late. Think about it. If a simple bowl of grapes before bed can quietly tip the balance toward brain swelling, what about the dried fruits many seniors snack on? Raisins, dates, figs, concentrated sources of sugar and chemicals that inflame blood vessels even more. That's where we're heading next. When you think of dried fruits, raisins, dates, figs, what comes to mind? Convenience, natural sweetness, a healthy snack. For generations, seniors have kept a jar of raisins on the counter or a pack of dates in the pantry, believing they're nature's candy in the best possible way. But here's the overlooked truth. Dried fruits are concentrated sugar bombs laced with compounds that can inflame blood vessels and accelerate brain damage. One of the most significant changes in aging is the rise of chronic low-grade inflammation, often called inflammaging. After 60, the immune system doesn't shut off as efficiently, meaning inflammatory chemicals remain elevated constantly, irritating tissues. Combine that with stiff arteries and you have blood vessels already on edge, just waiting for another insult. Now, dried fruits deliver that insult in two ways. First, by removing water, their sugar content becomes extremely concentrated. A handful of raisins contains the same sugar as a full serving of grapes, but without the water to slow absorption. This causes rapid glucose spikes, feeding inflammation and oxidative stress inside the arteries. Second, many dried fruits are preserved with sulfites, chemicals that extend shelf life, but also irritate the lining of blood vessels in sensitive individuals. For seniors, that irritation can be the spark that ignites a fire in already fragile circulation. Take the story of Mrs. Caroline Bennett, a 75-year-old retired nurse. Caroline loved figs and dates, which she ate daily as a natural energy booster. She believed they were healthier than cookies or candy. Over time, however, she began suffering from persistent fatigue, pounding headaches, and occasional blurred vision. One afternoon, while reading on her porch, she suddenly lost vision in her left eye for several minutes. Alarmed, she rushed to her doctor. Tests revealed she had suffered a transient ischemic attack, TIA, often called a mini-stroke, linked to severe inflammation and narrowing in her carotid arteries. Her daily dried fruit intake, rich in sugar and sulfites, had quietly fueled vessel irritation until blood flow to her brain was compromised. This is the hidden danger. The body interprets these repeated sugar spikes and chemical irritants as an attack. It responds with inflammation, swelling the vessel walls, making them narrower and stiffer. Over months and years, these silent injuries accumulate, setting the stage for a devastating stroke. Seniors often believe they're choosing wisely by avoiding cookies and choosing raisins. But the body doesn't see raisins, it sees sugar and irritants. Think about this: if a few pieces of dried fruit can quietly inflame blood vessels and trigger mini-strokes, what might happen with exotic superfruits that seniors are told will protect their brains, yet may dangerously interfere with their medications instead? That's the twist we'll uncover in the next section. In recent years, superfruits have exploded in popularity. Goji berries from Asia, acai from the Amazon, noni juice, mangosteen, exotic names promising miracles in small packages. They're marketed as brain boosters, anti-aging wonders, and immunity enhancers. For younger adults, the risks are often minimal. But for seniors, especially those on multiple medications, these so-called superfruits can carry dangerous hidden twists. Here's why. As the body ages, the liver and kidneys metabolize substances more slowly. At the same time, most seniors take at least 2 to 4 prescription drugs daily. Blood thinners, cholesterol medications, blood pressure pills, diabetes, drugs. That means every new food or supplement has the potential to interact in unpredictable ways. Even something natural, even something advertised as a superfood, can alter how medicines are absorbed, broken down, or excreted. Take goji berries. They're praised for antioxidants, but they also contain compounds that act like natural anticoagulants. Studies show goji can intensify the effects of warfarin, the common blood thinner. That may turn a safe medication dose into an overdose, leading to internal bleeding or brain hemorrhage. Acai. Another favorite is rich in plant sterols that can interfere with cholesterol medications, blunting their effect. Even noni juice, promoted for wellness, is dangerously high in potassium, which, as we saw earlier, can overwhelm seniors with reduced kidney function. Let me tell you about Mr. Harold Simmons, a 73-year-old retired accountant. Harold was health conscious and loved to try the latest wellness trends. A friend introduced him to goji berries, which he began eating daily, convinced they would sharpen his memory. He was also on warfarin after a heart valve procedure. For weeks he felt fine. Then, without warning, Harold developed severe dizziness and a crushing headache. At the hospital, doctors found a bleeding stroke. Tests showed his blood had become excessively thin, his clotting time dangerously prolonged. The culprit was the combination of warfarin and his new superfruit. What he thought was improving his brain health had in reality betrayed it. This story is far too common. Seniors eager to stay sharp and independent reach for exotic remedies only to find that their unique physiology and prescriptions turn those foods into silent threats. Unlike younger adults, seniors can't afford the margin of error. Every interaction matters. And the tragedy is that these risks are rarely discussed in glossy advertisements or wellness blogs. Think of your brain's health like a delicate balancing act. Medications are carefully adjusted by your doctor to keep the scale steady. Now imagine tossing unknown weights, superfruit compounds onto one side. The balance shifts, and before long the entire system collapses. So ask yourself if even celebrated superfruits can sabotage your brain health by clashing with your medications. What hope is there? Is fruit doomed for seniors? The good news is no. In the final section, we'll uncover safe brain-protective fruits and simple eating rules that allow seniors to enjoy nature's sweetness without courting disaster. We've walked through a difficult journey together, one that may have felt frightening at times. We've uncovered how certain fruits, when combined with the changes of aging, can turn from trusted friends into silent enemies, spiking blood pressure, thinning the blood, overloading the kidneys, fueling inflammation, or clashing with medications. The message is clear: as the body changes, the rules of food change too. What once helped us in youth may now demand caution in age. But let me reassure you, this is not the end of fruit. It's about choosing wisely, eating mindfully, and protecting your brain while still enjoying nature's sweetness. You don't have to give up fruit. You simply need to know which ones are safest and how to eat them in a way that supports rather than sabotages your health. Here are some of the best brain-safe choices. Blueberries in moderation. Rich in antioxidants called anthocyanins that protect the brain from oxidative stress. Enjoy a small handful in the morning paired with protein. Avocados. Technically, avocados are low in sugar and high in healthy fats that stabilize blood sugar and nourish blood vessels. Apples with peel provide fiber that slows sugar absorption, supporting steady energy and circulation. Pears gentle on the digestive system with soluble fiber that protects blood vessels. Berries like raspberries or blackberries, lower in sugar than most fruits yet still rich in protective compounds for the brain. Kiwi, a good source of vitamin C without overwhelming sugar, best eaten earlier in the day. Beyond the fruit itself, the rules of timing and pairing matter just as much. Eat fruit earlier in the day. Morning and midday are best when your body is active and can use the natural sugars as fuel instead of letting them disrupt nighttime circulation. Pair fruit with protein or fat, for example an apple with a handful of nuts. This slows absorption, keeping blood sugar steady. Avoid fruit right before bed. Nighttime is when blood pressure rises and vessels are fragile. Give your body time to process food before you sleep. Respect your medications. If you are on blood thinners, blood pressure pills, or kidney medications, double-check with your doctor before adding new or exotic fruits. Choose fresh over processed. Skip juices and dried fruits which concentrate sugar and chemicals. Whole fresh fruit in moderation is always safer. As we close, I want you to take away not fear, but empowerment. Knowledge is power. By understanding how your body changes with age, you gain the ability to make choices that protect your independence, your memory, and your vitality. I've seen too many patients blindsided by strokes or brain bleeds that could have been prevented with just a little awareness. I don't want that for you. I want you to enjoy your meals with confidence, knowing that each bite is building, not breaking your future. So let's make a pact today to eat fruit wisely, to listen to our bodies, and to respect the new rules of aging. With this knowledge, you're not just surviving, you're taking control. Choosing life and giving yourself the best chance at many more years of clear thinking, strong walking, and joyful living. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to type 0. Your feedback means the world to us. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe so these vital health tips can reach more seniors just like you. Stay safe, stay wise, and remember, your brain is your greatest treasure. Protect it well.